What if a frozen traveler from another star system is passing through our cosmic neighborhood right now, carrying the same chemical ingredients that once helped life begin on Earth? It may sound like the beginning of a science fiction story, but this is exactly the question scientists are asking after studying an interstellar object known as 3I Atlas. As astronomers began analyzing the vapor escaping from its surface, they discovered something that immediately caught the attention of researchers across the world. Roughly 8% of the material streaming off this object appears to be methanol. That number may sound small at first, but in the world of planetary chemistry, it is unusually high. In most comets from our own solar system, methanol usually makes up only about 2% of the released gases. This means that the interstellar visitor currently moving through our system is producing around 4 times more methanol than the comet's scientists have spent decades studying. A single measurement like that is enough to spark serious scientific curiosity. To understand why this matters, we have to look at what methanol actually represents in the chemistry of space. Methanol is not simply another molecule floating in the vacuum. Researchers who study cosmic chemistry consider it a key stepping stone toward more complex organic compounds. According to astrochemists working with organizations like NASA, methanol can participate in chemical reactions that eventually lead to molecules such as formaldehyde. Those compounds can then transform into simple sugars under the right conditions. Sugars are extremely important because they form the structural framework of RNA, one of the molecules many scientists believe appeared before DNA during the earliest stages of biological evolution. In other words, methanol itself is not life, but it belongs to a chain of chemistry that can eventually support the formation of life's basic building blocks. As scientists continued studying the gas cloud surrounding this object, known as a coma, they found that methanol was not the only interesting compound present. Instruments also detected hydrogen cyanide drifting through the expanding cloud of vapor. This molecule has a strange reputation because it is widely known as a toxic substance, yet in the chemistry that leads to life, it plays a surprisingly important role. Hydrogen cyanide can participate in reactions that produce amino acids. Amino acids are the molecules that later combine to form proteins, and proteins control nearly every biological process inside living cells. When researchers compared the amount of methanol to hydrogen cyanide surrounding 3I Atlas, they realized the proportions were unusually high compared with most comets ever studied. Additional observations started revealing even more pieces of the puzzle. Telescopes detected methane along with other cyanide-based compounds escaping from the object as it warmed under sunlight. At the same time, astronomers noticed a strange change in brightness after the object passed its closest point to the sunday. Normally, a comet becomes brightest while it approaches the sun and then slowly fades as it moves away. But this interstellar visitor behaves slightly differently. Instead of fading immediately, it briefly grew brighter. That behavior suggested that fresh layers of frozen material inside the object had suddenly begun releasing gas. Space-based observatories added further detail to the picture. The powerful James Webb Space Telescope detected levels of carbon dioxide that appear higher than what researchers normally observe in comets formed within our solar system. At the same time, methane seems to be stored deep within the object's interior layers, slowly escaping as heat reaches the inner ice. Another spacecraft observatory, Neil Gehrels Swift Observatory, measured water vapor leaving the object at an estimated rate of roughly 40 kilograms every second. What made that discovery especially interesting was the distance from the sun where the activity was detected. Under normal circumstances, comets that far from the sun usually remain quiet. When scientists combined all these measurements together, They realized they were looking at a remarkably rich chemical environment surrounding this visitor from deep space. One of the researchers who commented on these findings was astrophysicist Avi Loeb. Instead of describing the object as a mysterious threat or anomaly, he used a phrase that quickly captured public imagination. He referred to it as a friendly interstellar gardener. The idea behind that description is surprisingly simple. Rather than carrying life itself, the object may be transporting the molecular ingredients that help life emerge when conditions are right. This raises an important question that scientists are now exploring in detail. If objects like this travel between star systems while preserving complex organic molecules for billions of years, could they play a role in spreading the chemical seeds of life throughout the galaxy? To answer that question, researchers first needed to understand exactly how these molecules were detected in the first place, and the answer begins with one of the most powerful investigative tools in modern astronomy. The key to discovering those hidden molecules lies in a technique that allows astronomers to read the chemical fingerprints of objects millions of kilometers away. When sunlight hits the surface of a comet or any icy body drifting through space, the heat causes frozen gases trapped inside it to turn directly into vapor. As these gases escape, they form a glowing cloud around the object, known as a coma. Inside that cloud are countless molecules drifting into space, and each one interacts with light in a unique way. By carefully studying that light, scientists can determine exactly which chemicals are present. This process is known as spectroscopy, and it has become one of the most powerful tools in modern astronomy. Using this method, researchers studying the interstellar visitor 3I, Atlas began to notice chemical signals that were far stronger than expected. When astronomers split the light coming from the object into its different wavelengths, clear spectral lines appeared that corresponded to methanol. What surprised scientists was not simply the presence of methanol, but the strength of the signal. The intensity suggested that the molecule was far more abundant than what is normally found in comets formed within our own solar system. That discovery quickly raised an important question. Why would an object born in another star system contain such a high concentration of this particular molecule? One possible explanation lies in the environment where the object originally formed. Every planetary system begins its life inside a massive cloud of gas and dust where stars are born. Our own solar system formed about 6 billion years ago in one of these cold molecular clouds. But not all stellar nurseries are identical. Some regions contain higher concentrations of carbon monoxide, hydrogen, and other reactive molecules. When icy grains in those clouds are exposed to ultraviolet radiation from nearby young stars, chemical reactions begin to occur on the surface of the ice. Laboratory experiments here on Earth have shown how this chemistry unfolds. When carbon monoxide ice mixes with hydrogen atoms under extremely cold conditions, radiation can trigger reactions that slowly convert the material into methanol and other organic molecules. Over long periods of time, these reactions build increasingly complex chemical structures that become trapped inside the growing icy bodies forming within the disk around a young star. If 3I, Atlas formed in a region where this process was particularly active, it could have locked large quantities of methanol and other molecules inside its frozen interior billions of years ago. In that sense, the object may be carrying a preserved chemical record of the environment where its parent star system first took shape. This idea becomes even more interesting when scientists look at the other molecules detected around the object. Hydrogen cyanide, for example, is known to form efficiently in environments where carbon, nitrogen, and hydrogen interact under energetic radiation. The ratio between hydrogen cyanide and methanol measured in the coma surrounding this interstellar visitor appears different from what researchers normally observe in comets native to our solar system. That difference suggests the chemical conditions where the object formed were not exactly the same as those that existed during the birth of our own planetary system. Then there is the curious surge in brightness that occurred after the object passed near the Sun. Normally, a comet's activity peaks when it is closest to the Sun, a point astronomers call perihelion. After that moment, the comet usually begins to fade as it travels back into colder space. But this object behaved differently. Instead of dimming immediately, it suddenly grew brighter for a short period of time. That unexpected behavior hinted that something deeper inside the object had changed. Scientists believe the explanation may involve layers buried beneath the surface. Over billions of years in interstellar space, icy objects can develop a crust made of dust and frozen material that insulates the interior. Beneath that crust, volatile gases remain trapped under pressure. As the object approaches a star and begins to warm up, heat slowly penetrates deeper into the interior. Eventually, those sealed pockets of gas may break through the surface, releasing fresh material into space. When that happens, the sudden outburst of gas and dust can cause the object to brighten dramatically. Observations from the James Webb Space Telescope also detected unusually high amounts of carbon dioxide ice escaping during these events. Carbon dioxide typically forms in extremely cold environments far from a star, which supports the idea that this object spent most of its life in deep space before being ejected from its original system. Taken together, these clues suggest that this wandering traveler is more than just a chunk of frozen debris. It appears to be a chemical time capsule, preserving molecules created in a distant stellar nursery billions of years ago. And that realization leads scientists to a fascinating possibility. If objects like this can wander between star systems while carrying complex organic chemistry inside them, could they also help transport the ingredients needed for life across the galaxy? That possibility leads scientists directly to one of the most fascinating ideas in modern astrobiology, a concept known as panspermia. This hypothesis proposes that the ingredients for life, or in some cases even microscopic life itself, might be able to travel between planets and star systems on comets, asteroids, or fragments of planetary debris. Instead of life beginning completely independently everywhere in the universe, this idea suggests that biology, or at least the chemistry that makes biology possible, could slowly spread through space over enormous stretches of time. For many years, panspermia remained mostly a theoretical concept discussed in scientific debates, but discoveries in recent decades have slowly started to make the idea more scientifically plausible. Astronomers have detected complex organic molecules in interstellar gas clouds, in meteorites that have landed on Earth, and in comets orbiting the Sun. These molecules include precursors to amino acids, nitrogen-bearing compounds, and simple sugars. The more scientists look into deep space, the more they realize that the raw materials needed for biological chemistry appear to be surprisingly common throughout the galaxy. When researchers examined the chemical composition surrounding 3I Atlas, they noticed something that fits directly into this growing picture. The object appears to contain unusually high concentrations of molecules that play important roles in early chemical pathways related to life. Methanol can participate in reactions that produce formaldehyde, which can then contribute to the formation of simple sugars. Hydrogen cyanide can take part in reactions that generate amino acids and nucleobases, molecules that later become essential components of proteins and genetic material. However, scientists are careful to emphasize an important distinction here. The presence of these molecules does not mean the object contains living organisms. There is currently no evidence of life itself associated with this interstellar visitor. What researchers are observing instead are the chemical ingredients that could support complex organic reactions under the right environmental conditions. In other words, the object appears to be carrying pieces of the molecular toolkit required for life, not life itself. The journey that objects like this take through space is also extraordinary. Interstellar bodies are usually created during the early formation of planetary systems. When a new star forms, it is surrounded by a swirling disk of gas, dust, and icy debris that gradually builds planets, moons, asteroids, and comets. During this chaotic stage, massive planets can gravitationally scatter smaller objects outward at incredible speeds. Some of those bodies are eventually flung completely out of their home systems, becoming wanderers of interstellar space. Once ejected, they may drift through the galaxy for millions or even billions of years. Eventually, by pure chance, one of these travelers can pass through another star system. That is exactly what happened with earlier interstellar visitors, such as Oumuamua, discovered in 2017, and 2I Borisov, discovered in 2019. Both objects originated outside our solar system and briefly passed through before continuing their long journeys into deep space. What makes 3I Atlas particularly interesting is the richness of the chemistry detected around it. While 2I Borisov behaved very much like a typical comet, releasing familiar mixtures of gas and dust, the chemical ratios observed around this new visitor suggest a far more complex organic environment. That difference could mean the object formed in a region of space where organic molecules were especially abundant during the early stages of star formation. If objects like this are common throughout the galaxy, they could serve as natural transport systems, carrying organic chemistry between planetary systems. Imagine billions of icy bodies drifting slowly through interstellar space, each preserving molecules created during the birth of distant stars. Over vast periods of time, some of those objects would inevitably collide with planets that already have oceans, atmospheres, and energy sources capable of supporting chemical evolution. Many scientists studying the origin of life on Earth believe that something similar may have happened here long ago. Around 4 billion years ago, our young planet experienced a period of intense asteroid and comet impacts known as the Late Heavy Bombardment. During that era, countless icy bodies crashed into the early Earth, potentially delivering large amounts of water and organic molecules to the planet's surface. Evidence supporting this idea comes from meteorites that have fallen to Earth. One famous example is the Murchison meteorite, which landed in Australia in 1969. When scientists analyzed the rock in laboratories, they discovered that it contained more than 70 different amino acids, including many that are rarely found in living organisms on Earth. Those molecules clearly formed in space long before the meteorite ever entered our atmosphere. Findings like that have changed how researchers think about the origin of life. Instead of assuming that every necessary molecule formed only on Earth, scientists now consider the possibility that space itself may have delivered part of the chemical inventory required for life to emerge. Interstellar objects like 3I Atlas strengthen this idea because they demonstrate that organic molecules can survive the extreme conditions of interstellar travel for incredibly long periods of time. And that realization leads to a bigger question scientists are now trying to answer. If these travelers move between star systems carrying preserved chemistry, just how many of them are actually wandering through our galaxy right now? To answer that question, astronomers first had to confront a simple reality. For most of human history, we were not equipped to detect objects coming from outside our solar system. Interstellar visitors move incredibly fast and often remain visible for only a short period of time as they pass through our cosmic neighborhood. Unless a telescope happens to be looking in exactly the right direction at the right moment, these objects can easily slip past unnoticed. It was only in recent years, with the development of powerful automated sky surveys, that scientists finally began spotting them. The first confirmed interstellar visitor ever detected was Oumuamua, discovered in 2017 by the Pan-STARRS Observatory in Hawaii. When astronomers realized that this object had entered the solar system from deep interstellar space, the discovery immediately captured global attention. At the time, many scientists believed such detections would be extremely rare, possibly occurring only once every few decades. After all, if these objects were common, surely we would have seen them before. But that assumption did not last long. Just 2 years later, astronomers detected another visitor from beyond our solar system, an object named 2I Borisov. Unlike the strange cigar-shaped appearance that many scientists associated with Oumuamua, this second visitor behaved very much like a traditional comet. As it approached the Sun, it released gas and dust that formed a visible tail stretching across space. The discovery of 2 interstellar objects within such a short time period forced researchers to reconsider their earlier assumptions. If astronomers had already found 2 visitors within just a couple of years, it suggested that many more must be passing through the solar system without being detected. Most of them are likely too small or too faint for current telescopes to observe. Some may travel through the outer regions of the solar system, where sunlight is too weak to trigger visible activity. Others may pass through quickly before anyone notices them. New statistical models now suggest that the Milky Way could be filled with enormous numbers of these wandering objects. Some estimates indicate that billions of interstellar fragments may be drifting through the galaxy at any given time. If that is true, then our solar system itself may regularly encounter these visitors as it moves through the galaxy. This realization has significant implications for how scientists think about cosmic chemistry. Every planetary system produces large numbers of comets and icy bodies during its early formation. When giant planets begin forming around a young star, their strong gravitational forces can fling many smaller objects outward at high speeds. Some of those objects escape their home systems entirely and become permanent travelers of interstellar space. Over billions of years, these fragments slowly spread throughout the galaxy. Occasionally, one of them enters the gravitational influence of another star system, just as 3I Atlas appears to be doing now. Most of these encounters are brief, lasting only a few months or years before the object continues its journey through deep space. However, the more important point is that each one of these travelers carries material formed around a different star. That means every interstellar visitor provides scientists with a rare opportunity to study the chemistry of distant planetary systems without ever leaving our own. Future observatories are expected to dramatically increase the number of these discoveries. One of the most exciting upcoming projects is the Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile. This powerful telescope will conduct a massive sky survey known as the Legacy Survey of Space and Time, repeatedly scanning the entire visible sky with extraordinary sensitivity. Astronomers believe this observatory could detect dozens of interstellar objects every year once it becomes fully operational. Instead of studying one visitor every few years, researchers may soon have a steady stream of new objects to analyze. Each one will carry its own chemical signature that reflects the conditions where it originally formed. Some interstellar bodies may come from star systems rich in carbon compounds. Others may originate in regions dominated by water ice or nitrogen-based chemistry. By comparing the compositions of these objects, scientists will essentially be sampling the chemistry of many different stellar nurseries scattered across the galaxy. That is one of the reasons why the chemistry detected around 3I Atlas has generated so much excitement. Its unusually high levels of methanol, hydrogen cyanide, and other volatile molecules suggest that it formed in an environment quite different from the one that created our solar system. Yet even as researchers continue analyzing its chemistry, another mystery has begun to emerge. Something about the way this object moves through space does not perfectly match what astronomers normally expect from a comet traveling through the inner solar system. The mystery begins with the way this interstellar visitor moves through space. Normally, the paths of comets and asteroids can be predicted with extraordinary accuracy. Astronomers rely on the laws of gravity first described by Isaac Newton, and those equations allow scientists to calculate the future positions of objects in the solar system with remarkable precision. Once the orbit of a comet is measured, researchers can usually predict where it will be months or even years later. But occasionally, an object behaves in a way that does not follow the exact path expected from gravity alone. As scientists continued tracking 3I, Atlas, they began noticing tiny deviations in its motion. These changes were extremely small, almost impossible to detect without highly sensitive instruments. At first glance, this might sound unusual or even mysterious, but in reality, astronomers have seen similar effects before. In many cases, the explanation comes from a phenomenon known as non-gravitational acceleration. Comets are not solid rocks like most asteroids. They are often described as dirty snowballs made of ice, dust, and frozen gases that have been preserved since the earliest days of a planetary system. When a comet approaches a star, sunlight begins to warm its surface. As the temperature rises, frozen gases trapped inside the object start turning directly into vapor and escaping into space. This process is called outgassing. When these gases burst out from cracks or weak spots in the comet's surface, they form jets that shoot material into space at high speed. Each jet acts like a tiny thruster. As gas shoots outward in one direction, it gently pushes the comet in the opposite direction. The force is extremely small, but over time it can slightly change the object's path. These subtle pushes can cause the comet to drift away from the exact orbit predicted by gravity alone. A similar effect was observed with the first known interstellar visitor, Oumuamua. After its discovery in 2017, astronomers realized that the object was accelerating slightly faster than gravitational calculations predicted. At first, that behavior puzzled researchers. But later studies suggested the most likely explanation was outgassing from molecules escaping the surface, possibly hydrogen or other light compounds that were difficult for telescopes to detect directly. In the case of 3I, Atlas telescopes have already detected multiple gases escaping from the object. Observations indicate that water vapor, methane, methanol, and carbon dioxide are all being released as the object warms under sunlight. These escaping gases could easily create the small non-gravitational pushes that astronomers are measuring. However, there is one detail that makes this object particularly interesting. The activity appears to begin at a distance from the Sun, where many comets would normally remain relatively quiet. Most comets start showing strong activity only when they move closer to the Sun, where temperatures rise enough to vaporize water ice. But this interstellar visitor seems to be releasing material even when it is still far from intense solar heat. One possible explanation involves the types of ice buried inside the object. Different frozen substances begin vaporizing at different temperatures. Carbon dioxide and methane, for example, can start turning into gas at much lower temperatures than water ice. If large amounts of these materials are trapped inside the interior of the object, they may begin escaping long before the comet reaches the inner regions of the solar system.